Good afternoon. It's Pastor Jerry. We're raised once again, and we're here on the 6th of November. Last year in 2022, the 6th of November is when it frosted for the first time, but 4 or 5 days ago it got into the 20s, probably 4 days ago, 3 days ago it got into the lower 30s, and it frosted. And what frost does is it's referred to oftentimes as a killing frost. Behind me you'll see peppers, a poblano pepper plant and then a bell pepper plant. I just snipped it off at the ground, as we've taught before, with a pair of hawk-billed snippers. And the reason we teach that is because if you pull it up, you're going to destroy and damage soil texture and structure. So the structure basically is how all of the and the texture is how all of the materials are arranged that make up your soil system. Sorry, I came across a couple of tomatoes that are still in fairly good shape. This one, I'm surprised after 2 freezing nights is still good. So I'll put it in the windowsill, maybe even wrap it in some newspaper. A friend told me the other day that they wrapped some in newspaper last year and in October, and had a fresh, ripe Cherokee purple tomato on Christmas Day. I've not done that yet, but I'll experiment. But some, when they freeze, such as this one, it was a small one, and the freeze, all the moisture, the water in the cells of the tomato, it expanded, froze, and burst, and it's no longer good. So I'll feed these to the chickens. As you'll see, I'll lift it up. It's almost like a magic trick, pulling a tomato out of a hat, if you will. You can see how long this vine is, and it was upright. People will ask me, this Cherokee purple tomato was, as you can see, here's the end, and way down here, it's almost like holding up that black snake again. It was 10.5 feet tall because of how good our soil is. And this is, as of October, this is only the 3rd month I'm fooling with my dog, my daughter's dog. Stop that. He's nibbling on tomatoes, and I don't know if that's good for him. I'll get to that in just a moment. But this is the 3rd year that we've been here at the property entrusted to us by the Kannapolis Children's Home in Kannapolis, North Carolina, where we support them, and it benefits them for us to keep this this big pasture mowed and cleansed, and we're using it for a great process to feed and to teach unemployed, underemployed, marginalized persons, or those who just can't keep up with the inflated prices of food these days. So we teach sustainable organic gardening. You've heard this probably in other of our teachings, but this might be the first time for you. So what we do is we use 4 components to create a soil system. One of the things we teach in our classes is that dirt grows nothing. You've heard all of the wives' tales and popular myths. Some of them hold a little truth, but folk will see like black soil, dark soil, and say, well, that's rich. Well, it may be, and then again, it might have been farmed out. You always have to put nutrients back in the soil. As my mentor, Mr. Mike Price, who was a United States Department of Agriculture fruit and vegetable inspector for Central America, and we do a lot of work in Central America. That was a godsend, literally and figuratively. He taught me that it's a living thing. Our gardens are living things, and we have built 7 gardens here. We built them out of cinder blocks simply because it makes a clean garden. We don't do that overseas, and in most people's backyards, we'll use whatever we have. Sometimes we don't use any border. We'll mound it up at a 90-degree angle to conserve resources, and it works fine. It's just here at the teaching gardens, with them basically encapsulated by cinder blocks, the soil system doesn't move, it doesn't shift, it doesn't wash away. Some of my gardens are 2 feet high now, some are 36 inches, but it's a raised bed garden. And in that raised garden, what we seek to do is create what I call the 3 S's. Seeds seek, well, 4 S's. Seeds seek soft soil. That's what we teach about soil texture, that it's soft. Soil structure is how we put it together and create something. We do no tilling. Tillers, tractors, you're cutting the soil itself. And what I like to teach is, if you take my arm, it's in pretty good health, you know, and I've got hair, skin, epidermis, dermis, vessels, tissue, muscles, bone. And if you cut me with a knife, and I'll usually demonstrate this without the cutting, but if I take my handy dandy knife and I cut myself to the bone, then I've destroyed and harmed the skin, the muscles, the texture, the vessels, the veins, all the way to the bone. And it's got to heal, and I'm open to infection. A garden is much the same way. When we plow or till it, we are killing sometimes earthworms, sometimes biologicals, sometimes the beneficial bugs. We're disturbing the way it's arranged. Our arms, our bodies are arranged in a certain way. The skin is on the outside. If we till, we're taking the nutrients. Sometimes we expose them to the air. Nitrogen will volatilize, essentially evaporate, and we open it to weed seeds and to infection and all those things. It's a good analogy, I think. That's the way I teach. And so we never till. Some folks, there is a process. When I say never, you know, be careful, never say never. But some folks will use a tiller the first time just on that existing ground to break it up. That's called double digging. So they'll dig that, then they'll begin to layer and build what I've borrowed from someone anonymous to me, but I'll give them anonymous credit. It's not my idea. Called a lasagna garden, where we do layers. It doesn't have noodles or meat, obviously, but it's layer after layer after layer after layer after layer as you build the soil system. Remember, we teach dirt grows nothing. And if you ever want to come to the Teaching Gardens to train, you'll see that in a explicit way, because here in Western North Carolina, the Piedmont of North Carolina, most of what we have is red clay. It's very dense. It has very few nutrients in it. It is very common and was predominant in this area. And it's red essentially because about the only nutrient left in it is FeO2, iron oxide. It's rusted, and that gives it the red color. So it doesn't have much. It will hold a lot of moisture, which if you design your garden in a good way, you will have some sand, some silt, and some clay, and all of those work together in balance to create what we like to have as a loam, a sandy loam, a clayey loam, a silty loam. A loam is probably one of the best soils you can have. Here we have what is referred to as the oxysol, because almost every nutrient has washed out of this and it leaves behind simply clay. So when we have that situation, we use dirt, and once again, dirt grows nothing. I know you're saying you're a broken record, but we have to tell you that. What we do is we mix in compost that has all sorts of minerals and tilth to it. It makes the soil more spongy. It has a tilth, a kind of an earthy smell to it. We mix in manure, which brings nutrients, lots of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, trace minerals. And so what we do, we have to have 4 components to try to arrange a soil system that is soft, because seeds seek soft soil. The more energy they have to break through clay, the less energy that goes up to build a good plant, the stem, the foliage, the fruit. So it's like anything else. We teach from the Gospel of Mark in chapter 4, where there was a sower who went out to sow seeds, and he threw it along the path, and it was compacted, and the birds came and ate up that seed. That's because the soil was compacted. It was not soft. It could not germinate. So we want soft soil. Seeds seek soft soil. Out of that 4 S's that we strive for, we use 4 components: dirt, which grows nothing; manure, which is our fertilizer; compost, which is different than fertilizer, but it brings nutrients and consistency and good texture to the soil; and then mulch. And so we do that. We have the bottom is dirt, then we'll put down usually 7 layers of cellulose cardboard. Once again, we repurpose things. We take them out of the garbage and from going to the landfill. That serves as a weed block and a grass killer, because once again, if it can't get light, it can't germinate, it can't live, everything that photosynthesizes. So we put down that layer of cellulose. The bugs will eat it. The biologicals will eat it. It will deteriorate and put more carbon into the soil. Then we'll use a layer of mulch that will decompose. It also helps with weed block. Then we'll have compost, then manure. And we do that. We alternate the layers: dirt, mulch, compost, manure, up to the top. And the last 4 to 6 inches of all of our gardens, we put on mulch, because mulch it's part of the miracle of a soil system here at the Raised Ministries teaching gardens. Mulch will insulate your garden in all your seasons. In the summertime, it'll make it cooler. Certain plants like tomatoes, if it gets above 85 or 90 degrees, the soil temperature, they'll be beautiful plants, but they won't set fruit because the soil is too hot. As you know, certain things you don't plant before the gardens get to about 65 or 70 degrees in the early spring. And because the seeds won't germinate, they like a certain temperature, much like human beings do. Some folks like cold weather, like myself. Some prefer hot weather. The mulch will keep the garden warmer in the wintertime and cooler in the summertime. And also, it will prevent a lot of water loss. I like to use soaker hoses, and they're beneath that top 4 to 6 inches of mulch. And so what that will do is it prevents water loss and evaporation. And the greatest benefit for me is, once again, if something can't get light, there are weed seeds, I have no doubt, all in my gardens, but if they can't get light, they can't germinate. And the thing that I hated the most growing up is why I didn't learn that which I could have learned and had a jump start on this calling that I've now embraced, to feed people and teach them by these organic, all-natural processes. If I had not hated hoeing so badly, maybe I would learn something, but the hoeing never ended. It never ended. So a little boy who was rambunctious couldn't go out to the pastures or to the ball field or do the things he wanted to do because he was told he had to hoe. When he got through hoeing, he could go do what he wanted, play. But the hoeing never ended. Here at these gardens, if I was in my grandmother's garden growing up in western North Carolina, it would take all day, more than a day. And as my witnesses who will tell you here, weeding 7 gardens you can do in between 10 and 15 minutes total. That's like 2 minutes per garden because of the use of mulch, if you put 4 to 6 inches at the top. So that's what we do. And people will say, well, how do you get to the soil? You about said dirt, didn't you? We know dirt grows nothing. We just, wherever we're gonna plant, we'll pull the mulch back, we'll plant, and we'll bring the mulch back around that plant. Once it germinates and the roots go down, the stems go up, as we've been taught about the mystery of the seed in the New Testament, then we just bring the mulch back around the plant, and so nothing germinates there, and then it insulates it and it preserves the water as well. So back to the reason that now that everything is frozen and burst, here is a plant you can see behind me. It was about probably 3.5 feet tall as of 6 days ago. That's a poblano, and I imagine that we took off probably 120 pounds. I stopped counting at about 105 of poblanos. Just amazing, and it's all to God's glory and to how fertile these gardens are only after 3 years. The beauty of it is because we continue to add compost as much as we can. We're always making compost, always be making compost, and the manure. That's why we have the rabbits that are behind the camera and the chickens that are to my left. High nitrogen fertilizer, and it all goes in these gardens. So every year it'll become more and more fertile as we put it in. Now, last growing season, a year ago, I was able to work more here because the last year in health issues and surgeries and recuperations, I was not able to do as much. We only planted in essentially 3 gardens. Out of those gardens, we got almost 2,600 pounds of organic, all-natural fruit and vegetables that we gave away to various outlets, Feed Kannapolis Hunger and various rescue missions and the children's home and individuals that we trained here, the underemployed, the unemployed, widows and orphans, literally. A year ago, we just have to tell the truth always, we took in 3,275 vegetables. I've got it on my phone, but obviously I'm filming right now, but I think we're at about 2,570, somewhere like that. But that's not bad out of 3 gardens that are 4 feet wide and 48 feet long. You can do the math. God has really blessed us. We get a lot of bang for the buck. Out of these gardens, I estimate that we paid nothing for seeds. We paid nothing for chemical fertilizers, commercial fertilizers rather. We paid nothing for pesticides. We didn't use them. There's a bug on here, you cotton picker. Get out of here. It was a beneficial one too, so I didn't kill it. I just shushed it away. To quantify how much we spent, we probably spent $110 on these gardens, and that is for the feed that we gave to the chickens and the rabbits. I also feed them organically from the farm, the things we grow. So I can tell you, we did not spend more than $110 to produce 2,500 and probably 75 pounds of fruit and vegetables organically. I think that's a real great gospel gardening ROI, return on investment. So I hope you'll consider making an investment and get an ROE, a return on eternity, if you were to consider supporting Raised Ministries here and the Children's Home. Kind of a commercial, but we always ask you for your prayers, and we'll ask for that. So as I continue on this stream of consciousness, today we are taking up the tomatoes, the tomato vines, and the peppers. And one other thing I will share, because if you're watching this, I'd like to give you as much bang for the buck, especially if you just watch this and don't watch anymore. We do save our seeds, so out of these, that's my favorite variety of tomato, a Cherokee Purple. We save the seeds. It's a simple process. I'll have another YouTube video on how to process tomato seeds. But we have done all of this now probably 2,500 pounds of tomatoes we've gotten out of one tomato that we bought for $5.50. We got 4 sandwiches out of it. 1 for me, 1 for Jimmy Herrera, and 2 for Jim Robertson a couple of years ago. Processed the seeds out of them, kept the best seeds from the best fruit off the best plants, and now we don't buy any more seeds. And really, I tell folks, but I really believe this, I cannot quantify it or qualify it scientifically, but I believe there are better seeds than I can buy now, because I have been doing what my mentor taught me to do, keeping the best seeds from the best fruit from the best plants. We're taking the cream of the crop, and after a couple of seasons of that, we're taking the cream of the cream of the cream of the crop. So if you want to come and train here, we'll give you free seeds, and heirloom seeds are expensive, which brings me to a quick lesson on heirloom and hybrid. I'm not an heirloom snob. There's some great hybrid plants. Hybrid simply means they have been developed, some for disease resistance, some for drought resistance, some for flavor, some for texture, some for size. And the seed companies, whom I have great respect for, I do not throw off on them. They've done such good research. If it weren't for their work, probably more people in the world would be hungry and more starving literally to death. That's why God called us to this ministry, to teach the gospel by teaching people to grow their own organic, sustainable food. But hybrid takes 2 distinctly different cultivars, and you cross-pollinate them, and they're great marketers. They give them wonderful names like Supersonic. Before I was called to the pastorate, I wanted to fly F-15s for the Air Force. Was in Air Force ROTC for 4 years, and bucking for a pilot slot until God called me to a different army, a different service, if you will. But Supersonic, I love that name. And Bigger Boy and Better Boy. Why don't you want a bigger boy? Bigger and better for tomatoes. Those are hybrids, and they make great production and wonderful food. However, a hybrid, once it is produced, it's sterile. You can save the seeds, you can plant a plant, but you won't get that hybrid again. You might, if you're lucky, get whatever one of those hybrids were, but for the most part, hybrids won't produce. They'll grow a plant, but because of the genetics, they won't produce a hybrid. They're sterile, much like if you cross a donkey with a horse, you'll get a mule, and mules are great for certain things. the qualities they bring, but a mule is sterile. It will not have progeny. It will not have offspring. It's the same way with hybrid seeds. With heirloom seeds, and it's a good way, heirlooms, you can imagine the term means to pass down something that's valuable, that lasts and has a legacy. That's what heirloom seeds are. You can plant them and they will grow another fruit just like the fruit that they came from. And the good part about that is when you go to third world countries that do not have access to seeds, and if you buy hybrid seeds, you've got to buy them every year. With heirlooms, it is just better stewardship, in my opinion, especially if you find a certain kind that you really love, a German Johnson. Those are great ones. There's some great names. One of my favorites I grew, it was a good tomato, I grew 2 years ago simply because I loved the name of it. It was called a mortgage lifter. And I've taught in various churches, Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University. I'm a financial counselor with that organization. And mortgage lifter, what a great name. And there was another one I found, Abe Lincoln. That was a great heirloom tomato. There are heirloom watermelons. Moon and Stars was a heirloom watermelon that was discovered, I think, in Missouri a few years ago after they thought they were completely gone. So once again, you can save the seeds from that particular cultivar of watermelon and grow all of them that you want. We grow some here. So we concentrate on heirloom seeds so that we save the seeds. With tomatoes, there's a little bit of processing to do. Put them in the water so you can break down that gelatin that is around the seeds. With peppers, we simply take them out. I'll keep the best fruit off the best plant, and we cut them up and we'll dry them and then put them in an airtight container. I like to put one of those desiccants that takes the moisture away from it. Sometimes I like glass jars, but then I also put the glass jar inside of a brown paper sack, and we like to put them somewhere where it's going to be 34 to 39, 40 degrees so that they have some time for dormancy. Some plant seeds have to have that. You say, well, where are you going to keep it 33, 34 to 40 degrees? Perfect place is your refrigerator. And so if you put it inside of a paper bag, a brown paper bag, then it doesn't get light and those type of things, and that's important to some seeds. So we encourage you, go with heirlooms and save your seeds and save a lot of money. And you'll be amazed if you like trivial things, trivia, not trivial, I guess. You can chronicle how many pounds of organic vegetables and food you can come just from a tiny seed. So I'm going to bring this one to a close with one more lesson about hybrids and things like that. I encourage you to go with heirlooms because of the sustainability of it, and because really I think the heirlooms are the best flavored fruits and vegetables I think that I have found. Also, when you get to the place that it has frozen, cut the stems of your tomatoes, of your peppers off at the ground, back to soil structure. You don't want to pull it up, because if you do, you'll pull up the roots. That's what I always did because I didn't know any better. Now I cut it off at the flush with the level of the soil system, and that way I don't pull it up and once again damage that proper structure of the soil. And now you have those roots in there, they will rot, they will add more organic material to that. And when I plant next year, seeds sometimes are like human beings or water that follows the least path of resistance. And so those channels that those previous roots went down and broke through maybe some hard soil or maybe the soft soil, because we know seeds seek soft soil. But it'll go through those same channels. It expends less energy going down, so it puts more energy up into the fruit. We cut them off, then we'll take them over to our compost today before I leave, and we don't destroy or harm or mar the soil structure. Other thing that we will do for the tomatoes that have frozen and burst, we'll give them to the chickens. You can give poblano peppers and bell peppers to chickens. I've researched these and I encourage you, don't just take my word for it, research it. Some people feed chickens like you might feed other omnivores like a pig, but I would say be very careful. You can feed chickens a lot of things. Do not feed them things that have a lot of sugar in them, because that doesn't help them. And be careful about tomatoes and potatoes, especially. Onions do not help them. There's some nutrients in an onion that we like to eat, but are not good for chickens, especially in low doses. But I don't even give them the onions. And also it can flavor the eggs. If you ever grew up on a farm or close to a farm and you had cows get into onion patches, the milk will taste like onions. I guess you are what you eat. You drink what they eat. And you can give safely to chickens tomatoes, but not the leaves. The leaves of potatoes and tomatoes are in the nightshade family, and they have some components in the leaves that are detrimental to the health of a lot of things. I don't give them to our rabbits or to our chickens, but they can eat tomatoes, and it's a good source of lots of nutrients for them. So with tomatoes, just give them the fruit, not the plants themselves. With potatoes, you can give them the flesh of the potato, but they can't get the peel from them or the leaves from the potatoes. So I just leave them out. We don't do those things. So those are the things. If you're going to raise animals, always make sure you know what you're giving them. There's a whole nother story. When I was a pastor in Roanoke, Virginia, we had a work day, and I'll leave that for another day. But we had a very expensive day of cleaning up our church and helping the community because we put into a pasture some food that a gentleman wanted to give them that was not good for the cows. Another lesson for another day. But I'm going to clean up the rest of this. I'm going to put it in the compost piles, and it's starting to get dark, so we're going to have to get that done. This is Pastor Jerry. Sorry for the length of this, but if nothing else, we are real, and this was, I guess, real long. But say a prayer for Raised Ministries, we hope. Check us out, pastorraised.com, and I got the other one right, raisedministries.org. This is Pastor Jerry, wishing you a great evening. God bless you. Say a prayer for these ministries. Goodbye and God bless.